Welcome back to the channel, fam. Real quick recap. I brought my bike home ahead of schedule. Decided I wasn't gonna ride it because we had a week-long family vacation, the Walt Disney World thing. Got it back home, started the 600-mile break-in period, crashed maybe 3 times, and captured it all on video for you here. So let's get started with the first ride of my brand new 2020 Honda CRF300L Rally. So it did take me some time to acquire this bike. I know that some of the other channels that I've been watching have had a hard time acquiring the new 300. For me, my experiences were a little more negative only in the dealership aspect. You guys can see my Instagram page. I kind of go on a rant on all that. But I was able to get this bike ahead of schedule. Actually a week ahead of schedule. I ended up going to a Honda dealership here in the valley, south of the valley, and everything worked out really great. He gave me a good timeline, put down my deposit, and I was able to get it relatively worry-free, right? But to get started, for me, you know, it is important to note that I didn't start riding this when I first got it because I didn't want to get hurt before us going to Walt Disney World. I literally got it the day before we went, and I told myself, dude, you're gonna break your arm before we leave, and then your wifey's gonna be upset, right? So I for sure packed it away that day. It wasn't too hard. I mean, I was just like done. And the other thing to also note is that I am a new rider, and that's why this bike works for me. You can see my other video where I go through those reasons and what I like about this bike. But today is gonna be more about how the bike performed. Before we get to the bike though, again, I'm gonna reiterate, I'm a new rider. I'm 5'6", I'm 150 pounds. So I am right at the cusp of the weight limit on this bike. You know, we'll talk about suspension when I talk about the bike, but for me, there is a couple of things that are a little difficult. One being that it does have a 35-inch, actually over 35-inch inseam, and mine is like a 29, 30. So I do struggle a little bit on the bike. That obviously didn't deter me from buying it, and I think I can solve that by just getting a new seat. I don't think I'm gonna have to lower it, but we'll see, right? So again, I bought this bike as a new rider. Everything revolves around that. You can, again, go back to that video where I outline that stuff, and I am a smaller rider. Now, let's get into the bike. So the CRF300L Rally ABS edition is what I got. It's 2020. And I honestly feel like I made the right choice for the 300 and its displacement. There is a little bit more, and I think this is maybe a younger guy attitude. I don't know, I've seen some of the other guys do it too. But this idea of there is no replacement for displacement, I completely disagree with. And referencing back to the fact that I am a new rider, I think this can get you into a lot of trouble. You know, obviously we're all young at some point and kind of don't think things through. But my issue with the larger displacement bikes for new riders is it could become unmanageable for somebody who isn't skilled. And one of the things that I constantly teach, you know, on the mobility motorsport side of what I do in my professional life, is to be honest with your ability, right? When we're talking about capability, from an off-road standpoint in Jeeps and the stuff that I teach, capability not only has to do with your vehicle, but yourself, right? So I'm honest with myself. I'm new. I mean, I grew up riding four-wheelers, but this is new. I would consider myself a beginning rider. Even as you guys see through this video, I think that's the case, right? So for me, getting a big 1250 or a 1200 is not in the cards. So the 300 is a good place to start. Now the bike is a little bit on the heavier side, even though it is still considered the lightweights for me. You know, 300 pounds, it's a little bit over that. It's like 319. I'm gonna work to lower that to, you know, hopefully less than 300 pounds dry. But it is on the little bit on the heavy side for a 300. But I think the 300 and the transmission actually handle it well. So for me, the power is good for a new rider and for what I'm trying to do. The first 3 gears are pretty close together. I can go in circles in first gear, you know, get out of some obstacles and stuff in first and second. And I really like that because as you get past third gear, fourth and fifth, they're a little bit farther spaced apart. And for those higher speed open road situations, that 6th overdrive gear actually makes this little 300 drivable at, you know, 75 miles per hour. I've only taken it to 75 and taking it down just again because I'm still learning. I'm building my experience, and as you guys see me roll out content for this, that's the theme. I'm building my experience. This is my first bike, and I do plan on getting a couple more. I mean, we'll talk about it at the end of the video, right? So the bike has good power. I think the 300 is great. I think the transmission is cool. I never rode the 250, but when I started doing my research and seeing some of the criticisms of the 250 being just a little bit underpowered, I would say that my first ride and first impression, I like where the 300's at, okay? So the gearing's good, the weight's a little heavy, and the MPG, since to date I've only gone 100 miles on it, as I get into my 600 mile break-in period, I'm somewhere around 74 MPG. I've seen some other guys, as they've broken it in and get more use out of it, will I get that 78 MPG that the other guys are doing? I think so. So it does have a pretty decent range for, it's, in my opinion, the lightweight segment of the ADV riders, right? So you have your middleweights, which would be like the T7 or the Tenere, which I really like right now, to be honest with you, after I got this one, in terms of on paper. And then you have your heavyweights after that, like the GSs that are, closer to 500 pounds. So, the bike to me is really good in terms of first ride, first impressions. There are some things that right away I can tell that I'm going to change, and I've already ordered some of these parts. So tires, right? These 50/50 tires that come on it, they're okay, I guess, right? I wouldn't say that there's anything negative about them, but for me, I want more performance out of my tires off-road. Some of the issues that I came into on some of the more technical sections, I attribute to, obviously, one, me being a beginner, but two, I expected just a little bit more traction out of these tires. So I've already ordered new ones. I'm going to go with the Dunlop D606 as an experiment, just because that was what I've seen is recommended. But what I love about all of this is kind of going through, getting my experience level and trying new things is really the fun for me, right? And learning all this stuff, because I get a good experience base and I can relay that information to you. So that's the first set that I'm going to change. I ordered it. Actually, it should be here today, now that I think about that. The tires actually do better good on-road than they do off-road, right? So as a whole, this bike to me, I actually love it as I'm on road and putting through, the neighborhoods and building up, more confidence on it. And then when I get off-road, it's a little more difficult because I think I need more traction, or I'm expecting more traction from it. So that's just it. As I'm going through and you're seeing this video, I live in the desert primarily. Because of the range of this bike and the weight and the way that it's performing, the way even that's being marketed, it is my expectation to be able to do my local stuff, which right here in my backyard is the desert, and then drive the 2 hours up north into like northern Arizona and the Flagstaff areas, for some camping and maybe 1 or 2 or 3 day trips on this thing, and it being able to manage that no problem. So I think that this bike, with its intended purpose and how I want to use it, will be great. So here you see I have sand, there could potentially be mud, more desert, hard-packed terrain, rocks, things of that nature. But if I climb into elevation, I expect this bike to be exactly what I need. So that's one thing to consider too when you're looking at this bike. It's an ADV bike. It's a dual sport, right? It's supposed to be good on-road and off-road. One of the questions that I'd really like to answer for this little bike is, should I just go get a dirt bike, something that's got a much better suspension, that's lighter weight, that's got a little bit more displacement, and just throw on the back of my truck? I don't know. We'll see. My intention for this was I could potentially put it on the back of my truck if I needed to get it somewhere, but primarily I'd love to just drive this from my house and use it that way. You guys know that I work for Fieldcraft Survival, and we talk about Fieldcraft Survival. We talk about preparedness, and this is just an added tool in the Hernandez garage, right? So I do intend on riding this out of my house in the event that I need to, but also for recreational purposes. So we talked about tires, MPG, weight, the power, and that is better, in my opinion, on road than off road. To close it out, I guess it does suit my purpose, the ADV riders, for me as a new rider. But what I'm looking at now is potentially getting and adding like a T7, like I talked about earlier, the Tenere, because it is that dirt bike style ADV. The 700 displacement will probably be better for me, but I don't know. We'll see as I develop. Maybe this bike will do it. I don't know. And then you will also see me kind of looking at like the new Pan America, something more of like a tour or a cruiser. So these are just my thoughts as we kind of go through it. I think you guys want to hear about these crashes. So why don't we get into an explanation of how I got into a little bit of trouble. So we'll start in order. My very first incident happened as I'm just slowly trying to exit my neighborhood. The gated community and the gate that is present on this section doesn't actually see me. The sensor somehow, maybe I'm too small, or well, clearly I'm too small on the bike and it just won't open. Not a big problem. I started to put my foot down and then I realized that my foot was actually stuck on the peg. So after looking at it, and you can see here at the end of the crash, one of the straps that I had on these old pair of Fox riding boots, honestly they must be like 10 years old, broke right at the plastic point and then got stuck on one of the sides. This could have been super dangerous, which is why I keep everything super low speed and am learning this stuff. I don't ride with these anymore. I did get new ones, and essentially there, as I kind of grab down, you can see the strap is broken, and essentially it just didn't let me put my foot down, so I slowly laid the bike down on its side for my first one. Everything was fine. A couple of superficial scratches on the stickers, which I'm probably going to change anyways, and got rid of those boots for sure. So number 2 came when I was trying and attempting a U-turn here on this section of the trail. I figured, you know what, there is a berm here on the right side. I can just prop up, maybe get some water, and lost my footing. And again, laid it down on that right side. Superficial scratches again. My view of this is that my vehicles are tools, right? I've seen some people die a little inside when I have pinstripes, or I pinstripe the side of my Jeep, and also this here, you can see that. I mean, these are tools, right? These are vehicles. They're purpose built. They're purpose driven. I'm learning. Part of this is going to happen regardless when you're riding out in this manner. But here, this was just a rookie mistake. Lost my footing, laid it on its side. And the finale. So I took this incorrectly and paid the price for it. As I go through here, the wash on the bottom does end in sand, lose traction, and well, there you go.
That hurt.
Yep, that hurt. So at first I tried to pick this up and recover it, and then I decided, you know what, let me take a break, because this was the final one. I was already heading home at this point, and I kind of try to just get a good understanding of what's going on, right? A couple things. I know that I could have attacked this better, right? I mean, that's all part of the process. I'm definitely going to come back and attempt this again. As I got home after this trip, I checked my left hip, and I had this weird like polka dot pattern on my hip, and I couldn't figure it out. And then realized as I took my pants off that I have the motocross style Fox pants, and it has a pad on the hip side. And the bruising that I essentially earned from this fall was the bruising through those hole vents that hip pad has. So kind of interesting. These guys stopped by. They didn't see me crash, but it's always good to check on anybody that you come across in the desert who could use a little help. Appreciate you guys. Now, I did end up breaking that left side mirror. It's funny to me because I had already had them on order, the aftermarket ones, that is. I think I got the, I don't remember the name. They're the ram-mounted mirrors, the takedown, I think is what they're called. You guys can let me know in the comments. But those were already on order. I kind of anticipated that those were going to go, not just from reading it in the forums and whatnot, but also just kind of looking at them. So those are already on and installed. They give me a little bit more visibility, but also a little more give in the event that I crash. So Maiden Voyage is in the books. It's officially the end of summer here in Arizona, so we're going to say goodbye to those 117-degree days, and the next several months will be completely beautiful here in the desert. It's really only 3 months here in Arizona that they're pretty harsh. But what does that mean? That means that I'm going to continue to roll out more moto and Jeep content. Don't worry, guys, my Jeep's still here. We're going to do more of that as the weather gets a lot nicer. I wanted to show you this because I keep forgetting to put this in here. Currently, you can get this issue of Be Ready magazine. Looks like I'm going to be a yearly contributor. I did an article on recovery with these guys. Really great magazine, and I actually have another opportunity to do some more media via, print and magazines, but also some TV stuff here. Stay tuned, and I'll announce that as it rolls out. Guys, I appreciate your support. Like, subscribe, share this if this is something that you think is valuable. I appreciate you. And again, I will catch you on the next one.